All right, this video has high potential to send me to real estate jail, so I'm gonna need an asterisk. Actually, I'm gonna need red asterisks with sound effects here, 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 and right there. See, in real estate, there's this thing called steering. Whenever there's a list that's best places to raise a family or safest this or best that, has the potential to get us in trouble. We're not supposed to steer, but I know people want this information. So what they tell us to do in real estate school to stay out of real estate jail is to be the source of the source. Now that's kind of boring, right? And I'm not one to, thumb my nose at authority or really stick it to the man, but I wanted to do something a little bit different than just reading a list. So what I've done is I've got this list from niche.com of best suburbs in Greensboro to raise a family. Now, I've helped a lot of people move to all these areas that we're going to be discussing. I have shown homes in all of these areas. I've been there lots and lots of times, very familiar with them. So I'm going to take all that information, right? The source is niche.com, but I'm going to take my personal information and experience, and I'm also going to tell about some of my client stories that have moved to these areas. I'm going to put all that to the Valentino 5000 supercomputer, and we're going to go over all of these areas. Let's get right into it. I'm Jeff Valentino. I love helping people buy and sell houses. My contact information is below if you need help with that. All right, so the other thing I need to mention about this list that I found on Niche, there are two suburbs mentioned in here, Lewisville and Clemmons. Technically, they're suburbs of Winston-Salem, but Greensboro kind of is the center of the triad when these lists take place. But I've made separate videos for Lewisville and Clemmons. I'll link those below, so if you want to take a look at those, you can go ahead and do so after this. All right, coming in, number one on this list is Oak Ridge, North Carolina. And I've actually helped quite a few people move to Oak Ridge recently. I've been spending a lot of time there, sold quite a few houses there in the last few months. It's a really great little town. And one of the things that people like about Oak Ridge that they've told me when I'm doing research for this video, they say that the size of the town is kind of just right. It's not a small town of 3,000, but it's not, like Clemmons, it's like 25,000, right? It's kind of like in that nice in-between space. So you have a small town feel, but it's not quiet, empty, and desolate with literally nothing going on either. So the size of the town was one that people really tended to like. They also mentioned the location. Now this is in, northwest of Greensboro, which is kind of near the airport, which puts it right in the path with all the businesses and exciting things going on by the PTI airport. There's going to be a lot of growth happening there, which is one of the things I said, but it's also still really easy to get to downtown Greensboro. You get to Greensboro, most things, if you need to go to Costco, Whole Foods, stuff like that, 15, 20 minutes. Downtown Greensboro, same thing, about 20 minutes. And then if you want to go to Winston-Salem, you get there in about 20, 25 minutes to downtown Winston-Salem as well. So a really great location overall. Another thing that came up when I was talking to clients about why they liked Oak Ridge is they all tended to like larger lots. A lot of the lots in Oak Ridge tend to be around, 0.75 to 1 acre to a little over an acre with lots of mature trees. And that's one thing that came up a lot is the lot size. So again, plenty of actual size for the yard, but still in a neighborhood feel, which people said they liked quite a bit. When I asked some things that, maybe they didn't expect about Oak Ridge or things they would like to see different, is one of the things that came up, and about really the only thing was, while the necessities are in Oak Ridge, right? You have gas stations, a few restaurants, grocery stores, and things like that. There's not a lot else there. I mean, there are parks and stuff like that to do, but you're going to be going to, Greensboro for like your major shopping and stuff like that, or if you want to really go to a bigger variety of restaurants, you're going to be traveling to Greensboro. They wanted to see a couple more things or just some more things to do in Oak Ridge. And I'll tell you, there is some real opportunity there if any of you out there are entrepreneurial for a little bit of development in restaurants, service businesses, things to do and things like that. I think with the way the area in general is growing up there, there's some really high potential. Someone could really clean up, especially with a couple nice restaurants. All right, next on the list was Stokesdale, North Carolina. As I was doing a little bit more research on this, I found that on niche.com, Stokesdale was actually rated the best place to buy a house in North Carolina and the best suburb in North Carolina, which kind of surprised me. But Stokesdale is another one of these growing communities. It's going to be the furthest north of the one that we're talking about, but still kind of close to PTI Airport. And when I talk about growth, the first part of this stat might be a little bit surprising. The population's doubled since 2000, but it's only doubled to about 6,000 people. So it's not a huge town or anything like that. It's still going to be a small town with a small town feel. But it is still growing quite a bit with some new development going on out there as well. When I asked clients some of the things they liked about Stokesdale, one of the ones that came up was access to Bellows Lake. If you like, There's trails to hike around there. There's a lot of good mountain biking trails a couple of people told me about. But then also if you just want to spend time on the lake itself and do those type of activities, it's a really great location to get to Bellows Lake. Next thing they mentioned, again on the location side of it, but this time they said they liked it because it was a little bit farther away from the city. A little bit more quiet, a little bit more rural feeling, and that might be for you, might be not. But this one, people told me about what they liked. That's one of the things they mentioned. So one of the other advantages they mentioned of Stokesdale was getting more home for the money, but still in a nice, quiet, more of a rural suburban setting. When I asked what are some things they didn't care for, the really two things was that came up most is like the need to commute everywhere, because there's not a lot like in town itself. But overall, not a lot of negatives when I asked about Stokesdale. People tend to really like it, that smaller town feel, a little bit more rural, away from the city. So if you're into that, for sure, check out Stokesdale. All right, number 3 we're going to talk about is Summerfield, North Carolina. And Summerfield, North Carolina has a population of about 11,000. So it's again in one of those kind of right size areas, not too big, not too small, but still has that small town feel with lots and lots of charm. Now, Summerfield, North Carolina on niche has an A rating, and actually the only ones where it really got a lower than A rating was a C in nightlife and a B- in diversity. When I asked people what they liked about Summerfield and what I like about the area as well, it's really easy to get to Greensboro, especially if you like going downtown or you want to go to Tanger Center to see a performance or something like that. Greensboro is really simple to get to. Shopping at Friendly Center is simple to get to, so it's a really easy commute to do all things in Greensboro itself. Another thing they really liked in Summerfield is the schools tend to be highly rated. The clients I've talked to that have kids in those schools also echo that same thing of what the online reviews say about schools in Summerfield, especially the public and the availability of the private schools that are near there, all really highly rated. They tended to really enjoy the schools there. Another thing similar to Bellows Lake was Lake Brant. Lots of nice trails for hiking, riding bikes around there, or also lake activities. Really simple to get to Lake Brant. People mention that very often when I ask them what they liked about Summerfield. So another thing I would just say about Summerfield is it tends to have that more kind of higher end feel. The homes tend to be a little bit more expensive than the average home, let's say, in the Greensboro area in general, just so you're aware of that. Now, when I asked people what they didn't like about Summerfield, not really much came up, but what I will say is that Summerfield has been in the news recently with the proposed development of Summerfield Farms. That's supposed to be a 10 to 20 year plan, a multi-decade plan to put in eventually thousands of new houses in Summerfield with lots of different shopping areas, multifamily projects, and all kinds of different, residential and commercial development, like I said, over the next 10 to 20 years. I've talked about it on other videos before, but they've had plans to keep lots of green space in there, and it's just, right now, it's just kind of being fought. They're talking about, as I'm recording this, the town wants to, or the developer wants to de-annex from the city of Summerfield itself. The town is fighting that, and so it's just kind of a whole kerfuffle, I guess, right now of what's going on with the development of Summerfield Farms. So that's something you should be aware of regardless, if you decide to buy out there or not. But you can see pretty plainly where those plans are. So, and if we're looking at houses out there, we can make sure that we discuss that as well. But overall, Summerfield is a really great place, a really nice suburb. So those first few we talked about were all up in that kind of northwest area. Like I said, about, near PTI Airport. It's going to be right in that path of growth. It's going to be interesting to see what that area does over the next few years. I think it's a really exciting time for people that are considering moving there, because it'll be interesting to see what property values do over the next few years as the area continues to grow. For this next one, we're going to head down south. We're heading to Jamestown, North Carolina. And I'll tell you, Jamestown is a great little town. Sometimes I feel like I kind of want to live there, actually. If it was a little bit closer, a little bit easier to get to Winston-Salem, I might strongly consider it, but it's a great little place. It is a small town. The population is just under 3,500, but its location makes it really, really easy to get to Greensboro or High Point. So while there's not, the town itself is small, super easy to get to Greensboro or High Point. So if you wanted more of that, city experience, it's in a great location for that. And when I asked people what they like about Jamestown, similar things came up, right? They like the schools that are there, of course. So the rankings tend to kind of match what you see online with what the people feel about the school. Again, the other thing I would mention that came up quite a bit is that you can get more home for your money in Jamestown than some of the other areas that we talked about. So there are more affordable homes down in Jamestown. You can get a house. You can find nice homes in Jamestown still in the 300s, where that would be harder in some of those other areas that we discussed. And another one that I really have to agree with is people told me they like the restaurants in Jamestown. I haven't had a chance to really explore all of them there, but I've been to a few, and I'll tell you two right away that stand out. One is Southern Roots. Is just a great little restaurant. If you're in the area, it's worth a trip. I mean, I'm in Lewisville near Winston-Salem, and I make the trip down there to go to eat there. It's a really good restaurant. The other one I'll say is Black Powder Smokehouse. It is a barbecue restaurant, and don't get me in trouble here, but I prefer Texas barbecue over Western Carolina barbecue.
Get out.
But Black Powder Smokehouse does a good job with Texas-style barbecue, kind of what I'm used to and kind of what I enjoy in barbecue. So two really good restaurants there. The downtown, like the little strip there is not quite a downtown. The traffic on there is a little bit on the faster side, but it's really quaint. It's got some nice shops and things like that. So exploring Jamestown is definitely something that you should consider. The other thing they mentioned that they liked about that is the people there tend to be really friendly. The neighborhoods are tight-knit and a strong community feel to the town in general. So what do you think about these? Did I miss any? Do you disagree with any of these? Let me know below. If you're thinking about buying, selling in any of these Greensboro suburbs or anywhere in the Triad, I'd love to be a resource for you. You can email me directly at jeff@govalentino.com. Thanks.